we've given people enough time to trickle in, and then they can always join us throughout the webinar. My name is Sarah Dorr. I'm ISA's Director of Professional Development. So I work with academic and professional programming, both in person and virtually. Today we have Roslyn Grandy from the University of Connecticut Library, and she's going to be discussing using Google tools in the research process. Before I hand over the screen to her, just so everybody knows, we do have a chat feature in Zoom, which you can use, and there's also a Q&A feature. So you can communicate with us throughout the webinar, and it's up to Roslyn how she'd like to take questions during the presentation or at the end. Okay, so Roslyn, I'm going to hand it over to you. I hope that everybody can hear us, and just send us a message in the chat if you can't.
All right, thanks so much, Sarah, for having me today. Good morning, everyone. My name is Roslyn Grandy, and welcome to Using Google Tools in the Research Process. This is a workshop that I give periodically to UConn affiliates. I have modified it slightly today for the ISA audience. I just wanted to tell you a little bit about myself. I am the pharmacy librarian at UConn. So I am liaison to both the School of Pharmacy and the Nutritional Sciences Department, but I do also provide general research support to the UConn community. So that's kind of part of how this workshop fits into my daily responsibilities. I use Google quite a bit for getting a working knowledge of things, for looking for certain kinds of resources. So it's definitely something that I think is valuable to learn more about, because I think a lot of us are familiar with it on some level, but there are a lot of tips and tools that I'm going to share today that you may not be aware of. All right, so Google is a powerful search engine that can be harnessed for discovering a lot of different kinds of information. And just some examples that I put up are reports by NGOs or by government organizations, stats, scholarly articles or peer-reviewed, open educational resources that could be remixed and reused, PowerPoint presentations, data sets. So a lot of different kinds of information, textual as well as visual. However, it is not a subject curated database that retrieves sources that have been vetted by experts, by editors. So it kind of focuses on putting everything out there. Google crawls a lot of websites, and it sometimes the amount of information that you find can be overwhelming. So it's important to learn how to kind of whittle down to what you're actually looking for. And a librarian, if you are unaware, is someone who can help you with formulating searches, with knowing when to go to a database versus when to use Google. We are kind of specialists in searching for all kinds of information and connecting people with the information that they are looking for. So Google is really just a tool, and what you get out of it depends on the commands that you put into it. I'm going to start with Google Scholar, which I assume many of you have used. So basic functions of Google Scholar, you can just put in a subject, and you can use Boolean here. So that would be and, or, and not, to either limit or expand your search. So refugees and mental health, as an example. It does include articles, books, and conference papers. The citation counts for both books and conference papers are something that is more robust in Google Scholar than Scopus or Web of Science, which are both citation indexes, if you're familiar with that term. So that means that you can see who is citing which articles. So that is kind of one advantage of Google Scholar over the subscription-based citation indexes. It also does create citations for you, but you do have to be careful because these are auto-generated citations, so sometimes there will be missing information or incorrect information that you need to correct. And there are also tools like related articles and other versions. So I'm going to go right now into Google Scholar. All right, so I'm going to use as a sample search German refugee mental health. The most straightforward way to limit on Google Scholar would be by date. So it gives you kind of some options here. If you want to just click since 2008, that'll kind of whittle it down for you, but you can also put in a custom range. So if we wanted 2020, 2022, we could do that. And the results up here, will go down when we change that. Let me just remove these filters. Okay. Another thing that you can change here is sorting by date versus relevance. It defaults to relevance. So whatever the algorithm thinks best fits your terms that you entered, that would be relevance. And then if you wanted to do by date, this would be like 15 days ago. This is the most recently published scholarly article matching those terms. Another tool that was recently added to Google Scholar is review articles. So if you click that, it will limit to kind of literature reviews, systematic reviews depending on what your subject is, that can kind of give you an overview of that topic. So like this one is a systematic review. This one would be more of a general view of that topic. Something that I mentioned earlier was the cite tool. So if you click here, you can get these citations, but just looking at these, like psychiatry should be capitalized here. Let me see. Also, Google does not include DOIs. So like for APA, you would definitely need to add the DOI. And you can also export to a citation manager if you use EndNote or RefWorks. BibTeX will work with most citation managers as well. And then you can see this cited by feature. So this is really helpful if maybe it is an older article, like this one's from 2018, and you want to see more current resources on that. So I could click on cited by, and this tells me everything that has cited that article on Google Scholar. And then the other tool here is related articles. So that's just kind of textually Google telling you, this is the text in this article, and these are other articles that are similar. So those are both kind of tools. If you find like a golden article, you can go forward, see who cited it since then. You can look at their references, go backward, and then you can also find related articles. One thing to note about Google Scholar is it does often have multiple versions of the same article. So whether it is the preprint version versus the published version versus a poster version that was given at a conference. So sometimes the citation counts are a little inflated because of all of these versions. So just kind of something to be aware of in Google Scholar. So now I'm going to go into advanced search. All right. Sometimes it gets funky. All right. So I'm going to type in, I do want the word refugee to show up somewhere. And if you want to search something as a phrase, you can type it here. So I want mental health to stay together. I don't want mental to show up without health. This is kind of like a Boolean or. So if we wanted to do Germany, German, Deutschland, Deutsch, to kind of get all ways that that might be represented. If you want to take something away that's, let's say you don't want Syrian refugees, you want refugees from other countries, so you would just say without Syrian. If you want the word to appear in the title of the article, which is a very narrow search, you can select that. I usually will leave it on anywhere. And you can even say, if you know an author you're looking for specifically, and then you can also put date here. All right, so 5,000 as opposed to, let me see what we got in our previous search. $46,000. So definitely lower numbers when we use the advanced search. Another thing I wanted to show you on advanced is that you can look for everything by a certain author in a certain publication. Wogenstein is a professor at UConn, and I want to find everything that he's published in Germanic Review. So if I do search here, this will pull up those 3 articles that are by him. Another thing that you can do with advanced, you can kind of skip the advanced and just put this into basic search. So if you use the operator author as Wogenstein and then source Germanic Review, that will give you kind of the same results. And same thing with the search that we had typed in earlier. If we just put this into the basic search box, that will limit. I had done a slightly different search here. I limited to author, last name Smith. So that's definitely going to be, if you don't, once you kind of get more familiar with what is available in advanced search and you just want to use it from basic, that is an option that is available. Now I'm going to go into my Google Scholar just to show you. I was in kind of a private browsing before, so this is what it looks like when you don't have an account. But if you do have an account, it will actually recommend articles for you. So these are related to areas that I research, that I conduct research in. This is my profile. So publication plus some presentations that I did. You can verify your email. You can put up a picture if you would like, and it will tell you your citation stats if that's something that is helpful for you. And then also, let me just do my search again. Now that I'm signed in, I can use the save feature. So if I do save, and I've already have some labels set up, so I'm going to do workshop example. And then that will now show up in my library here with this tag. So you can kind of use it as a citation manager / article manager. It's not as robust as RefWorks or EndNote or Zotero is the other thing that we support at UConn. But it is an option if that's something you would like to use. I did want to say a word about quotation marks. Generally, databases are very smart. If you put in mental health, it will keep mental and health together. But this was an instance that I came across where it didn't quite work. So I was searching about smartphones used in high school classrooms, and it came up with a grad student one because it had mentioned high and school separately. So once I used quotation marks, that kind of made that result not show up in my results. So it was kind of a more relevant search. And again, let me just go back here. If you're using it in basic search, you need to use the quotation marks. If you are just putting it in the advanced search, you don't have to remember the search commands. So that is just one thing to note. So limitations with Google Scholar. There is no DOI field, as I mentioned. Just to give you an idea of the number of records in Google Scholar, there are 389 million versus Scopus, which has 72 million. So Scopus is much more selective in what it indexes, whereas Google Scholar has a lot of duplicates, as well as inaccurate information. So this was one that I came across in my research. I was looking to see what articles had cited this book, which was published in 2011. And Google Scholar is telling me that an article published in 1996 cited it, which is impossible. So sometimes there are just inaccurate things in Google Scholar. And also, as I mentioned before, the cited by number will be overinflated due to multiple versions of the same work. So it's great for discovering what is out there on a given topic, but as far as getting access, you may need to go through your library. So this is one that's available just to the general public because it has this PDF link. If you are on campus or if you've set up your Google Scholar to integrate UConn library resources, this one will show up. But here, there's no access link. So you would just click on the publisher's site and they would want you to pay. So don't do that. Whatever affiliation that you have with the library, they can usually get it to you for free via interlibrary loan. And if you are a UConn affiliate, you can look in our databases or set up Google Scholar to integrate with UConn library, which I can show you after the workshop if there is any interest in that. Okay, I'm going to move on to Google Basic Search. So the easiest way to limit in Google Basic Search, again, you can just put in your search terms and then there is a tools feature and you can just limit it to a few select dates. So let me see, I did. Germany immigration policy. 221 million results. If I go to tools, and I could even, if it was something that I wanted super current results, I could say past hour. Just a few results there. Or I could even do past year or a custom year range. Other things that are in the advanced search, the best way to find The Google Advanced Search is just to Google the words advanced search, and that will take you there. So this kind of guides you. This is how you would do it in advanced search, but this is how you would do it from the basic search box. So a lot of the same tools are available. But the advanced search gives you the guide and tells you how you would do it if you were doing basic search. All right. So I'm just going to go through this, kind of the different options that you have. So heart attack as a phrase keeps that together. If we do cloning, but we don't want sheep to show up, you could do the minus sign. You could limit by a language or by a region. You could also limit it to one specific site. So if we were looking at lung on cancer.org, we would use this site cancer.org tool. And then you can also search domain extensions. So site.gov will limit to government websites. If we did site.de, that would limit it to Germany websites because that's their unique extension. edu. You can also search by file type. And I'll do examples of this in a minute. So we can limit to PDF, to PowerPoints. And then you can also limit by usage rights, so free to commercially modify. So let's go back to search from advanced. I can do refugee, mental health. I don't want Syria. I'm just going to limit to Germany here. And I'll go ahead and run the search here. So this is going to be things published in Germany. A lot of them will have the DE extension. Some of these are PDFs, some of them are websites because I hadn't put that in, but this is how that would look kind of in the basic search. So combining file type with the site search operators, I have found is a good way to look at for data on the web. So if we do immigration statistics, site limiting to German and file type PDF, let me show you what that does. So PDF is often a good way to find reports. They're not always stored in PDF, but sometimes I find that that is a really helpful thing. So this is all from German websites and PDFs that will give you stats on that topic. All right. Another example that I had put here, this search finds PowerPoint presentations from educational institutions. So if we do Germany refugee and then site edu file type, it is sensitive to version of Word. So if you do PPTX, that will be newer PowerPoint versus PPT, which would be the old version of Microsoft Office. So from here, you could actually find PowerPoint presentations to download. You can just click on it and it will download that PowerPoint. Now you don't want to plagiarize, so you could use this as a jumping off point or look at their references. But that is kind of something you may have not thought to look for before on Google, would be PowerPoint presentations. So I'm going to kind of give you a case study of how I used these tools. I had given this workshop like 7 years ago, and I found this stat: only 23% of millennials can conduct a well-executed Google search, and I was looking for something a little more current. So what I had the citation. It was in this Business Insider article, but I wanted to find the original source for that. And I found, oh, it's from an Inside Higher Ed article. But when I clicked on that article, the link was broken. So this just takes me to the Inside Higher Ed page. So what I did kind of to get around that was I took a selection from this quote, and then I limited to site insidehighered.com. So I just plugged that into Google, and it brought the article right up. So even though the link was broken, I was able to combine the search terms with this limiting to site Inside Higher Ed, and I got the original source of that information. So that's kind of breadcrumb trail that Google can help you to find exactly what you're looking for. I want to go a little bit more into the domain types. So there is edu, gov, org, mil for the military, comnet if you want to limit to a country again, you can do co.uk or de. You can search a specific site. So NY Times. An alternate that you could do is Syrian refugee, Germany, source, NY Times, New York Times. You do want to spell it out there. And then here are some file type options. So doc, docx, XLS. These would be the newer ones again with the XML if your research takes you into that. Another thing I wanted to note is that Google does recognize punctuation. So if you want to search a hashtag, you can do that. So if we do hashtag higher ed, that will pull up Twitter results first. Jobs, Facebook. Also, if we do, you can search a handle. So at Bill Nye will find his Twitter, as well as his Instagram and TikTok. Using 2 dots gives you a range of numbers. So whether that is years or prices, that's another kind of tool that you can use. So if you do quote 50 to 150, this will pull up things that fall within that price range. And then it does recognize R&D, kind of the ampersand. So you could find research on psilocybins. All right. Another thing I want to point out is that you can use Google Images for a lot of different things. One of the most useful is reverse image searching, which will search for the properties of that image on the web. And then you can also limit by size, color, type, time, and usage rights. So whether you can reuse it in a commercial setting, in an educational setting. I'm going to show you an example of this. So if you just go to images.google.com, you can either upload an image here, or you can drag and drop. So I'm going to give you an example from library school. I actually took an art librarianship class, and one of my assignments was to identify the artist of this drawing. And I was supposed to use a print index, but I kind of took a shortcut and searched for this image on Google. So I'm just going to drag and drop this into Google Images. And after I did that, I was able to find out that it is part of the Picasso line drawings. And you can see it'll show visually similar images here. It'll pull those up. Me just go to images here. So if I wanted to find an image of Angela Merkel that was had a Creative Commons license, I could limit by that here. So these I could use in a Creative Commons setting. You can also limit by type. So if you go to tools, if you wanted to find a good GIF, that's another way to find GIFs if you don't have it on your keyboard or anything like that. And then you could also find clip art, line drawings. Size will be like resolution, or you could find an icon. So a lot of different ways to limit in Google Images. And another thing I want to point out is that this can be very helpful for kind of debunking fake news, misinformation that you come across. If you remember last year, there were some ice storms around the country in the South that were kind of unprecedented. And there was, anytime that there's a natural disaster or big event, misinformation will arise around that. So someone had posted on social media, like, look at this, crazy ice in a park by my house. But if you plop this into Google Images, you will find that it was actually taken in Sweden in 2018. So not at all related to the Texas ice storms. Another example of this, I don't know if you saw a post circulating during COVID that the canals in Venice got so clear that dolphins were coming to kind of visit. If you put that into Google Images, you will find that this image was actually taken in Sardinia, which is closer to the open ocean where dolphins are more likely to be. The dolphins never actually came back to Venice, although the canals did get cleaner. So something I want to show you, if you are using Chrome, you can actually right-click on any image that you find kind of in the wild and search with Google Lens, which does the same thing as downloading it and uploading it to Google Images. So that's kind of a shortcut that you can use. And I've put the sources for that talk about kind of how these images were misused, if you would like to go into that. But this Google Lens is really awesome if you want kind of a shortcut with reverse image searching. And just because it may be useful to you in a variety of settings, I put some examples of copyright-free images. If you kind of have a need for those, this is one from Unsplash. So you can give credit, but there are no strings attached with using this image. And I will be sharing these slides with Sarah. So you are welcome to contact either her or me if you would like to see the slides. These are just a few tips and tools that you may be aware of. You can set a timer on Google and it will actually beep when the time is up. You can do stopwatch, look at a flight status, see the score of your favorite sports team. There's a calculator for tips or other functions. Basic translations, Google is pretty decent with. If we type in etymology ballet, that will tell you the historical origin of that word, kind of what language it came from. Conversions, I use this in cooking a lot, like 4 ounces to cups, that's kind of a weird one. Currency conversions, sunrise times, stock quotes. And this isn't necessarily a Google tool, but I use it all the time when I am conducting research and I have 6 bajillion tabs open. Control-Shift-T, let's say that I accidentally closed this tab and I wanted it to not be closed. Wrong shortcut. If I do Control-Shift-T, that will open the tab that I just closed. So just kind of a tip for doing research. And then these are just funny things that Google does. If you type in do a barrel roll, the whole thing will roll around. Askew will make it crooked. Google has a lot of games. So if we type in Pac-Man, you can actually play it right there. And if you want to throw back to the OG Google, you can see, you can actually do searches from within here. This is Google when it was first born in 1998. A few other things that I'm not going to go in depth on. There are so many Google products that you can use for a variety of purposes. Google Trends will kind of tell you how a certain topic is trending across various platforms. Keep is for passwords. Drive, I'm sure you have used. You can use it to plan a trip. Ngram Viewer is a really cool thing, which I'm going to show you here. So this pulls its data from Google Books. One of my favorite words is lugubrious. So if I type that in, it means mournful. It'll tell you in books that have been digitized by Google, this is the occurrence of that word throughout time. So it kind of had its heyday in 1872, fell out of use, but it's making somewhat of a comeback. And then you can actually go click on a year range and see where that word appears. And it's on page 154 of Jane Eyre. So how would that be useful to you? Depends on your subject, but I think it is super interesting. Another thing that you can do with Google Books is actually look at magazines. So they have books, but then they have historical magazines as well. So if you wanted to look at like December 1963 issue of Life, you can just scroll through that. If you need historical ads or just the articles, a lot of those have been digitized and are on Google Books. Dataset search, arts and culture is really great for getting like museum tours and things like that. Google News, you can customize. So it will show, you can follow different subjects and it will put those kind of on a feed for you. And then these other articles that I have put up, one is from Google, just more information about the search operators. And then this is kind of an outside source that has 23 Google tips that you may want to learn. All right, so this concludes the workshop, and I am going to send this chat to everyone. This is just an evaluation of the workshop. It's completely optional, but that would be helpful for me to know. So you are welcome to take that evaluation. If you do have any questions, I can hang out for a few minutes. But otherwise, thank you for attending and good luck with your research.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much, Roslyn. That was really cool. I honestly enjoyed that a lot. And it's like, you think you know how to use Google because it's so easy to use. And then you find that it can have all these different functions. So for everybody that is registered, I'm going to send along Roslyn's slides to you. And if you want to reference or come back to any of the topics discussed in the training, the recording of this training will be available on our virtual events programming page within a few days. I will share the link for that and put it in the chat. Does anybody have any questions for Roslyn? You can write them in the Q&A or simply in the chat yourself. Can you see the questions in the
See
chat?
that. So I'm a researcher in international relations. I need to conduct a discourse analysis. I'm not super familiar with that type of study or article, discourse analysis. So Google Ngram is historical. So that's kind of something to keep in mind. It's things that have been digitized on Google Books. It's typically going to be things that are in the public domain. So kind of very old material, whereas Google Trends is going to have more current information. So I believe Trends would be better for your topic, but it depends kind of how historical the topic is. So let me just go here.
So there are a lot of different ways to conduct a discursive analysis. It definitely depends on the time frame. It depends on the actual method that you're adopting. There are a lot of different ways to go out of it. It depends on what you're conducting the discursive analysis on. Are they governmental speeches? Are they, is it more of a content analysis approach in which you would maybe want to use in vivo? But this, I think that's a really excellent question. And
so
it's helpful to have more context to answer it.
Right. I just did Germany, but let me see what the Trends has on Germany refugee. So we could change this to, I'm just gonna say 18. To kind of see if there's a bigger, there's definitely a bigger difference of like, this time there was a whole lot about that, whereas, oh, you know what, we would have to probably go further here. It breaks it down by sub-region, related topics. Oh, that's why. Okay, it did not switch to 2018. Let me 15. See if that sticks. Okay, there we go. That's what I was looking for. So there are certain points where that topic was trending more. So that could kind of be interesting to you, depending on the topic. All right. I don't see any other questions, but again, meeting with a librarian would probably be a great step, regardless of what your topic is.
I have a question, if I may. You mentioned the Creative Commons license in relation to the image search on Angela Merkel, and I'm actually not clear what a Creative Commons license means in relation to that.
So there are several types. And there's kind of this, let me see if it, okay. So that limiter will find all these different types, but you really have to go see, most of them will have this little logo. And so this lets you distribute, remix, adapt, build upon even commercially, but like this one, however, it cannot be shared with others in adapted form, and credit must be provided to you. So if you are kind of publishing your own things in a repository or on your own website, you can choose one of these licenses to go through. And this is really the best place to see what exactly I can do with that content. With images, I would just go to one of those that I had listed. If you want to be super in the clear about how you are using an image, these are great sources because they're completely copyright free. They can be used in fair use settings, which is like educational settings, as well as commercial.
Okay, thank you. That was really helpful.
Sure.
So are there any other questions for Roslyn today? If you could fill out the survey for her with the link yukonlibwizard.com. Feedback is always helpful in these situations. And since I don't see any other questions, thank you so much for joining us. And we are having another training next week through the Yukon Library with best practices for managing your research data. And you can find upcoming events on the professional resources and virtual programming and events link that I shared. And that has these trainings and basically any of our virtual programming. Okay, well, thank you so much, everyone. And thank you, Roslyn.
All right, you're welcome.